Jacob's Quest, and last night I got to see Wonka, the brand new adaptation of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, except this time it's a prequel to all of that. This is all about how Wonka got started in the chocolate business. And I say prequel in kind of a loose way, because this really is like a new take on the whole thing entirely, right? Because, you know, we've had, of course, there's the original book, which, by the way, I've never read the original book, so if any of this at all was in the book, I did not know that. But, you know, obviously we have the two film adaptations. We have the classic Gene Wilder, and then we have the Johnny Depp in the mid-2000s. And, you know, two interesting takes on Wonka, right? I think everyone generally agrees that Gene Wilder is the most beloved one, and then Johnny Depp was weird. And I will say, this one I found to be very whimsical, very family friendly, safe. And you know, there's been a lot of talk about, like, is it a musical or is it just a normal movie? Because the trailers are not playing up the musical aspect. But I will say this: yes, it is a musical, but it's not like as excessive as I kind of thought that a musical might be. You know, I'm not someone who's watched a bunch of musicals. I've seen maybe one before or two. And I've never seen one in theater, so I didn't even know what to expect going into this movie. But yeah, I will say that, like, while there's definitely musical numbers, I don't think it's any more excessive than the original Wonka movie. You know, like the Gene Wilder, I think they had like the same amount of songs in them. So I don't know, if this one's a musical, then I guess that one was too, right? So there you go. And yeah, I think this take on Wonka, this one is very much, you know, and I think maybe because it's supposed to be a younger Wonka, this one's entirely optimistic. He's very whimsical, and he's always an optimist, and he's like, everything's going to work out, everything's going to be fine. It takes a lot to get this guy to his low point, which he does hit for a moment, but then he comes back. You know, he's a dreamer. He's, you know, and that's like the whole thing about the movies, you know, like don't, you know, capture your dreams, don't let them go, whatever, right? And that's kind of his whole deal. So the whole, you know, dry humor, sarcastic side that like Gene Wilder brought to it, you don't see too much of that here. Maybe a little bit when he's talking to the Oompa Loompa, but I can definitely see where, like, you know, 30 years on, he might become the Gene Wilder Wonka one day. But right now, he's very much a dreamer and an optimist, and, you know, he's it's got like that infectious energy where, like, everyone he meets, or almost everyone he meets, except for like the real sinister bad guys here, they kind of just become dreamers too, you know, and that's basically what happens throughout this whole movie. And I will say, generally, I really like this one. You know, it's a fun time. I think you can take your whole family to it. I don't think the musical elements were, like, you know, too excessive. Obviously they're there, so if you have a problem with people singing at all, then, you know, this is not your movie, because there is people singing here, right? But yeah, I think it was a pretty simple movie. It felt like, you know, it felt like it captured that, I always have a problem pronouncing Roald Dahl, the author's name, Roald Dahl. I think I said that right. Anyways, you know, it definitely captured the vibe that you always see his movies kind of going for, that sort of vaguely, you know, what, Charles Dickens type era, where, like, it's not, they don't ever say that this is in London or in America. It's kind of always been vague where the Willy Wonka story is set at, but it's kind of capturing that vibe, you know, whatever this town is, and whatever even year this is supposed to be. You know, he's a magician and inventor, so you kind of get that old, like, late 18th century kind of vibe throughout the whole thing. But yeah, I think this captured all of those elements really well. This is definitely, I think, the happiest Willy Wonka that we've ever seen. Definitely not, you know, you think back to, like, what Johnny Depp's version, where he was basically an insane child trapped in a man's body. That's basically what Johnny Depp's version of Wonka was. So you don't get that here. He's, you know, this is a happier person. And yeah, I think on the whole, I think you're gonna have a good time if you take your family to this one. Now, I will say it can get kind of, because there's songs and it is like a fully optimist dreamer kind of thing, it can get kind of, I think schlocky would be the word, where it's like, okay, this is all, there's nothing sarcastic about this. They're being completely sincere. So if you're gonna go in there looking for some kind of like even a little bit of an edge, it's not here. There's no edge to this. It's fully sincere in what it's doing. Having said that, I do think a lot of the humor works. I think the Oompa Loompa is the only thing that brings any kind of sarcasm here. So when the Oompa Loompa shows up, he's pretty funny. Like those scenes of them talking together are pretty good. It doesn't happen a lot, and I think that's one of my criticisms, is I kind of wish that character was introduced earlier in the movie, because there is a lot more of the dry humor that you might expect from the Gene Wilder version in those very few scenes of Wonka talking to this Oompa Loompa. The other thing is that this is supposed to be a prequel about how he got into the business and how he started his company, and it is, but you don't see the fully realized factory until like the last couple seconds of the movie, and even that seems more like a daydream sequence of like, oh, this is what I'm gonna build one day. So you don't really get to live there, where you saw like in the original movie, like he opens up the doors and it's this grand, like colorful factory with the chocolate river and all that stuff. Like you don't really get to see that until like the last second of this movie. So yeah, this is very much early days. He's like selling stuff on the streets. He's like just barely opening a store, and then things go wrong there. Now the villains, I will say the villains were interesting. Obviously they're evil, but they're just as quirky, I guess is the word. They're weird. They're they all got like funny accents, and they all dress really weird, and it's a children's villain type thing. I will say though, they were actually trying to like kill him. So that was kind of interesting, right? Because like as whimsical as this movie was, like they were like actually trying to murder Willy Wonka for a minute. Like they blew up the ship that he was on. Like there was an actual murder attempt here. So they weren't just like, oh, let's sabotage his chocolate, which they do that, but they did have a plan to actually murder him. So I will say, like, okay, there's a little bit of an edge here. they were actually going for like a death here. But yeah, they get stopped. So there's kind of like this twist reveal of like who this girl is, who he befriends in this movie. There's like a twist reveal of who she really is, which I think a lot of people could see coming. I was kind of thinking it was a different twist. They make it clear she's gonna be somebody, so they don't hide that there's gonna be a twist. I thought it was gonna be someone else, but they went a different direction. I think it still works. And yeah, it's a delightful movie. I think it's it's fun. You could take your family to this and you'll probably have a good time. Is it as good as the classic? No, it's not. It's a brand new story. It doesn't have much connections in any way to there's no Charlie Bucket's dad or Charlie Bucket's grandpa Joe or something. If there is, I missed it. That would have been interesting. I think if they had introduced like Grandpa Joe or something, and that could have been like a fun connection there, but there's nothing like that. But yeah, I think if you're just looking for a happy movie, like a movie that's not gonna make you feel too sad, although the girl he befriends is an orphan, so there is like some tragedy there, although it ends on a happy note. So if you're looking for like just a happy movie that's not too serious, it's just like a colorful thing, and the world's real serious right now, so if you need some level of escapism, I think this one will do you good. Yeah, I had a fun time with this one. Am I ever gonna like watch it again? I don't know. I haven't watched those other Wonka movies in like decades, so I don't know if I would watch this one if this is any different. But I will say, yeah, I think if you say prequel to Willy Wonka, and this is what they're making, this was not a bad end result here. I feel like they captured the energy pretty well. And yeah, I'm fine with this more optimistic, upbeat, dreamer kind of Wonka. I feel like we've kind of got all the different flavors here. So yeah, I like this one. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.